Nora, my fiancé's beloved, was forced by her family to marry a famously reckless playboy, one of the most notorious rich heirs in the city. Ethan, my fiancé, couldn't bear to let her suffer such humiliation, so he went and stole her from the wedding. That very day, the two of them registered their marriage in front of countless onlookers. The entire upper-class circle of the capital was waiting to watch me and the Harper family become a joke. But the next day, Nora's former fiancé, the man Ethan had stolen her from, drove a bright red Bugatti to block the entrance of my company. "Your fiancé stole my fiancé," he said, "so you're going to repay his debt by marrying me. That's perfectly reasonable, isn't it?" I looked at his striking, arrogant, bright red hair and smiled as I nodded. "Yes, very reasonable." Seeing how quickly I agreed, Jackson John raised an intrigued eyebrow. Near the end of that brow was a tiny round stud that shimmered with each movement. But for people like us, marriage was nothing more than a chess piece, a tool of advantage. So he was only briefly surprised before slipping back into his usual lazy, unruly demeanor. "All right then, I'll come tomorrow to talk about the wedding. Today I still have to deal with those annoying old men. They drive me crazy," he muttered while ruffling his own hair, making his curls even messier. I laughed and brushed aside a strand falling across his forehead. "No rush, just contact me when you're free." He seemed pleased with how understanding I was, said a few more words, and then drove away. I returned home as usual, but before I could enter the villa, I saw a figure who now only made me feel annoyed. Ethan Harper clearly had too much free time, of all places to walk. He didn't choose the main avenue but wandered straight into my private villa community. "Really?" Ethan gave me an awkward, forced smile. "Grace, don't talk to me like that. That day, I had no choice. You know how Nora is. She always endures everything quietly, even if she's suffering. If she actually married that John family playboy, who knows how many times she'd be cheated on? I really couldn't let her fall into a fire pit." My face remained expressionless. He couldn't bear to watch Nora fall into a fire pit. But me, his legitimate fiancé, was allowed to become a laughingstock for the entire upper class? What kind of logic was that? I didn't want to waste my breath, so I stepped around him, heading inside. Unexpectedly, he reached out to grab my hand, but I immediately pulled away. "If you have something to say, then say it. Don't touch me." "Grace," he said, sounding wronged, "what's that supposed to mean? Are you trying to cut ties with me? Even though Nora and I registered our marriage, I never said I'd end things with you. It's just a marriage certificate. It doesn't mean anything. We can still continue. You just won't have a title, so you'll have to endure a little. But I know you won't mind, right? After all the years you've loved me?" Hope flickered in Ethan's eyes, but I only frowned, unable to understand what went on in his mind to make him say such shameless things. He even dared to openly ask me to be his mistress. I was so angry that I laughed. "Ethan Harper, do you think you're that important? There's nothing left between us to salvage. From now on, we go our separate ways. Don't interfere with me." I said it clearly and seriously, but he still thought I was throwing a tantrum. Holding on to my sleeve, he chuckled. All right, don't be so serious. I know you're upset because I married someone else. I promise I'll handle things well later. I won't play favorites. Both you and Nora are the women I love most." Even if she's his legal wife, he wouldn't let her overshadow me. At least that's what he said. Talking to him felt like playing music to a buffalo. Pointless. I truly didn't understand what my parents had been thinking when they chose him to be my fiancé. But my upbringing wouldn't allow me to lose my temper with someone like him. I glanced at my watch and decided to take this opportunity to make everything clear. "Ethan Harper, I'll speak plainly," I said. "I don't have feelings for you. We just grew up together, and our engagement was arranged by our families. All this time, I've only been fulfilling the obligation of someone in an arranged marriage. Liking you was never part of it. Whoever you actually love or want to marry has nothing to do with me. So you don't need to come here saying these things. I don't agree with any of it. Was that clear enough? If there's nothing else, please leave." I could clearly see the emotions in his eyes shift layer by layer, from disbelief to furious rage. His face reddened. "Grace, unbelievable. You're lying just to make me angry, aren't you? I personally came here to see you and even apologized. What more do you want? Don't you care about my pride at all? Even Nora could swallow her grievances and accept everything. What right do you have to reject me? Letting you be my mistress is already me giving you face. Go ask around the whole capital, who among the old money families would bother getting involved with a nouveau rich family like yours? Only I bothered with you, and you still don't know what's good for you. You'll regret this later. With that, he stormed into his car and sped away. I stood there watching the trail of exhaust curling behind him, feeling a swirl of mixed emotions. To say I had no feelings wasn't entirely true. We did grow up together. But whatever little attachment remained had long been worn away by all the times he chose to abandon me for Nora. Jackson Jiang, however, did not forget our appointment. Early the next morning, he asked me to meet him at Sterling Private Dining, a private Cantonese restaurant. When I saw him, I almost didn't recognize him. He had dyed his hair black, removed all the flashy jewelry and studs, and was wearing a simple white shirt paired with blue jeans. I instinctively glanced at his eyebrows, and as if he could read my thoughts, he spoke first. It's just temporary. I stuck them on before just for fun. What's wrong? Didn't recognize me? I smiled. It's just a bit unfamiliar. Everything went smoothly. We secured the most luxurious hotel and finalized the grand wedding setup. As for venue decorations or wedding attire, Jackson said he would handle everything and the costs would be split evenly. He rested his chin on his hand, half a sesame ball still in his mouth, making him look like a cartoon hamster. Everything goes according to you? This is your wedding too. You don't have any opinions? I replied calmly. People say listening to your husband brings good fortune. I just want to start early. Maybe I'll be prosperous longer. That made Jackson burst into laughter. Only then did I realize his eyes were incredibly bright when he smiled, and he had 2 small dimples on his cheeks. He didn't look anything like the reckless playboy people described. After we finished discussing everything, Jackson said he had matters to handle at home, and I cleaned up to return to my company. But the moment I stepped out of the private room, I ran right into Ethan Harper and Nora. Both had just finished eating and were standing close together. When they saw me, Ethan reacted first. "Grace, what are you doing here?" he asked, staring at me. He glanced at the empty dining room behind me, then turned back with a knowing expression. "Oh, so you followed us here, didn't you? Someone like you, who usually eats boxed lunches, how could you ever afford to step foot in a place like this? I told you already, everything you said the other day was a lie. Now that you see me and Nora together, you're upset, right?" His triumphant gaze drifted smugly toward Nora. Standing beside him, Nora wore a pitiful expression as she gently added, "Stop it, Ethan, don't say any more. No matter what, Grace must already be heartbroken because she couldn't marry you. It's my fault." She said that, but the car key she twirled around her finger dangled conveniently in my line of sight, an unmistakably expensive limited edition supercar released this year. With her family's financial situation, there was no way they could afford it. Clearly, Ethan bought it for her. Her entire appearance had been transformed, head to toe in luxury brands. It was obvious Ethan was spending lavishly on her. I suddenly remembered the time I had spent with him. Forget about a supercar. He hadn't even given me a silk scarf. Instead, I had been the one constantly transferring him money for his food, nightlife, and entertainment. He always complained about being broke, and I foolishly thought that in love, it didn't matter who gave more. Looking at it now, I had simply been his golden goose all along. Nora noticed me looking at her belongings, and her gaze toward me shone with blatant satisfaction and pride. Before I could say anything, Ethan immediately stepped in as if to protect her. "Why would you apologize to her? She's the one who can't let go. She's the one who should be begging us. And let me tell you, Grace, if you want to get back together with me, it's not impossible. But don't think it'll be the same as before. All those harsh things you said to me last night, I'll let that go. You just need to compensate me for emotional damage. Every month, give me and Nora 1 million each as spending money. That should be enough, right? And clothes, handbags, send all the new season ones for Nora to pick first. When I'm with her, you absolutely can't bother us. And the wedding, I'm only holding a ceremony with Nora. If you can't even meet these basic conditions, then forget about getting back together." He listed demands one after another, faster than beans spilling from a bamboo tube. The absurdity of his conditions was more ridiculous than any joke I'd heard in my 25 years of life. What was even more laughable was that he genuinely believed getting back together with him would be some kind of blessing for me. I gave both of them a calm glance. Do you need Thorn Group to set up a charity fund for you two? I recently got acquainted with an internationally renowned neurologist. I can introduce you. He's very good at helping patients like you. Ethan froze, then flushed red to the ears. What did you just say? I shrugged. Take it literally. I said you two are sick. His furious shouting echoed behind me as I walked away without looking back. I drove straight to the company. Emotions are precious, and I would never waste them on people or situations that don't deserve them. Jackson Jiang and I decided to hold the wedding on the 10th of next month. We were both busy with our own schedules, so we simply agreed that he would come to my house to pick me up on the day of the ceremony. Looking at the wedding plan the event designer sent over, I felt a strange sense of unreality. Not long ago, after my runaway fiancé incident, I thought marriage would be something far removed from my life for a while. Yet just like that, I was actually about to get married. My mother worried that because of my emotional wounds, I had hastily chosen someone at random. My mother tried her best to persuade me, but I closed my book, and for some reason, the image of the man who once blocked my car at the company gate flashed through my mind. Arrogant, stubborn, and that small dimple at the corner of his mouth when he smiled. Don't worry, Mom, I said. Jackson is perfectly fine. Marriage is the same, no matter who it's with. You can't rely only on surface emotions. You have to consider the benefits behind it, too. Isn't that exactly what you and Dad taught me? Hearing my own words made my mother fall silent. She sighed and after a moment ended the call. I lifted my head toward the lonely stars scattered across the night sky and quietly wondered when I had become this kind of person. It felt as though my entire world had shrunk into two words: benefit and purpose. Cold, precise, rational, to the point of feeling artificial, like a machine programmed to perfection. In the days that followed, I was swamped at the company. The moment I lifted my head from the pile of documents, my secretary knocked cautiously. Director Taylor, there's a gentleman here to see you. He says he wants to deliver. Before she could finish, a thunderous voice crashed into my ears. Grace, I'm here to give you my wedding invitation. I looked up, and unsurprisingly, it was Ethan Harper again. He was grinning triumphantly as he pulled out a gold-embossed envelope and tossed it onto my desk with a disdainful tone. Nora and I are holding our wedding. I hope you'll attend. Time is running out for you. Once the ceremony is over, my heart will belong to her completely. If you want to come back or want my forgiveness after that, it'll be too late. Unbelievable. A man who broke off our engagement and wanted to keep both women at once was now demanding that I come beg him? I laughed, opened the invitation, and saw the date clearly printed, May 10th. I raised an eyebrow, then casually tossed it straight into the trash beside me. Thanks for overestimating me, but I really don't dare accept such a blessing. You should save it for Miss Nora. The carefully crafted invitation lay in the trash can, and Ethan's face flushed red, then turned pale. Enraged, he pointed at me and shouted, Grace, you really don't know a good opportunity when you see one. You just threw away your last chance. His words came out jumbled in anger, but I didn't have time to argue. Jackson had just sent over the updated guest list for our own wedding, and I needed to review it. I rubbed my temples, tired. Ethan, I've told you countless times, I have no feelings left for you. If you behave properly, our families can still maintain cooperation. But if you keep coming to me with these ridiculous ideas, then I can only say one thing. The partnership ends here. Ethan had been spoiled since childhood, the kind of rich young master who never cared about how businesses actually operated. He had no real understanding of the industry. He still imagined my family as a newly wealthy household with no business sense, never realizing how many generations had passed since those days. Hearing my words, his expression twisted. He clearly couldn't afford to lose face and desperately wanted to regain control. You think I'm afraid of you? Cut ties if you want. The Kwan family has a massive empire. Do you think losing a few deals with your family matters to us? If you have the guts, cut off all our capital chains. Go ahead. Seeing his arrogant expression, as if he already had the advantage, I simply nodded, ran my fingers across my keyboard, and sent out an internal directive. All right, as you wish. Soon after, Ethan received a call from home. I didn't know what the person on the other end said, but he left in a frantic hurry. Before storming out, he glared at me and growled, "Grace Taylor, just you wait." Wait for what? As if I had the time. Fortunately, for a long period afterward, he and Nora didn't cause any more trouble, and things stayed quiet all the way until the day of the wedding. To avoid unexpected traffic, Jackson and I agreed to set out early. But the world really was strangely small. On the way to pick me up, we ran straight into Ethan Harper and Nora. When their car passed mine and Ethan saw me, his eyes lit up immediately. But the moment he noticed I was wearing a wedding dress, and that behind me was a long line of escort vehicles, his expression instantly darkened. "Grace, what are you doing? Trying to take Nora's place? I told you we can keep seeing each other, but I'm only holding a wedding ceremony with her. What's with this getup? Are you trying to upset her on purpose?" I gave him a brief glance but didn't bother responding. Our family's butler stepped forward cheerfully, holding out 2 small gift bags with both hands. "Today is our young lady's wedding day. We hope you will accept these tokens of good luck." Ethan stiffened, and after a moment he scoffed sharply. "Impossible. As if she would marry anyone but me. She must be trying to steal our wedding again, and is too embarrassed to admit it." Even the butler fell silent, perhaps finally understanding why I had chosen not to say a word up to this point. At that moment, Ethan felt the weight of the gift bag in his hand and curiously opened it. Inside was a bar of solid gold and a Patek Philippe watch. His eyes widened almost comically green with greed. "This? You dare give something like this as a wedding gift?" The stunned, hungry look on his face wasn't an act. Nora, startled by his reaction, hurriedly clung to his arm. "It's okay, Ethan. Once my family's business takes off, we'll have a wedding even grander than hers. Even more glamorous." Ethan forced out a strained smile and carefully tucked the gift bag away. "Right, when that day comes." At that moment, the butler turned toward me and gave a small nod. "Miss Taylor, the young master is nearly ready." I returned the nod and signaled for the staff to clear the path for the Jiang family motorcade. But instead of moving, Ethan's car stubbornly remained parked right in front, refusing to budge. It was clear he still believed this was some elaborate performance I had staged, determined to stay and watch me make a fool of myself. If that was what he wanted, then fine. Let them see for themselves. When the Jiang family's imposing motorcade entered the Taylor estate, I could clearly see Ethan's entire face freeze. I didn't pay him any mind. Instead, I quietly smoothed my hair and adjusted my gown. A red carpet stretching several dozen meters had been rolled out, reaching from the lead wedding car all the way to the front gates. Ethan and Nora stood nearby, whispering in disbelief. "To that? Isn't that the Jiang family crest? Is she actually marrying Jackson Jiang? No way. No way. The Jiang family would never value someone like her, and besides, Jackson is a notorious playboy. She would never agree to marry him." But when the car door opened, the entire crowd fell silent. Jackson stepped out from the Bugatti with confident strides. Behind him, several attendants carried a large medieval European painting, the very one I had made him promise to give me after losing our bet. I didn't expect him to actually remember. Jackson smiled at me from afar, and I naturally stepped forward and slipped my arm through his. Every movement between us flowed effortlessly, as if we had rehearsed it countless times. Ethan was so shaken, he nearly stumbled as he rushed toward me. You're really getting married? You're actually marrying Jackson?" I raised an eyebrow. "Why? Isn't it clear enough? I've shown you everything you wanted to know. Now, can you move? We still need to get to the venue." Maybe Ethan Harper had never imagined that the obedient, gentle girl he used to know could truly leave him behind. His eyes were red as he stood there, right in front of Jackson, still trying to grab my hand. I stepped away coldly. "Can you stop reaching for me every time you talk?" Even Nora, standing beside him, looked embarrassed and tried to pull him back, but he shook her off. "Don't interfere. Grace, how can you marry someone else? I'm the one who grew up with you for 25 years. The marriage pact was between you and me." So he still remembered that. I had assumed that the moment he rushed to register his marriage with Nora, those memories no longer existed in his mind. I frowned, worried he might lose his temper and hurt Jackson. Instinctively, I shifted to shield Jackson behind me, but that only made Ethan look even more devastated. I know you're still mad, I know you want to get back at me, but you can't just marry anyone out of spite. You know Jackson's reputation, he changes girlfriends like clothes. Marrying him is ruining your own life. I finally lost my patience. With a deep breath, I turned to Jackson, worried he would be dragged into Ethan's nonsense. Watch your words, I snapped. Jackson is good wherever he is. What happens between me and him has nothing to do with you. I've told you many times, this is the last time. There is nothing left between us. Stop interfering in my life and my husband's. The moment the word husband left my lips, Ethan visibly froze. His eyes reddened even further as though he wanted to say something, but I had already linked my arm through Jackson's and stepped into the car, leaving Ethan behind. But Ethan's flashy wedding car still followed us all the way to the venue. Through the window I could see his face twisted with anger. I sighed in annoyance. Jackson remained calm, squeezing my hand lightly. What's wrong? Regretting it already? Regret? I laughed. I'm just afraid he'll cause trouble and mess up the auspicious timing. Jackson arched an eyebrow and suddenly leaned close to whisper in my ear. Then later, don't stop me. I hadn't even processed what he meant when the car door swung open, and Ethan immediately rushed over. He reached out to grab me, but Jackson was faster, knocking his hand away with force. Touching another man's wife comes with consequences. That single word, wife, made Ethan's face drain of all color. Wife? You? What are you? I've been with Grace for 25 years. Who do you think you are to interfere? I opened my mouth, but Jackson had already stepped forward, shielding me entirely. 25 years and nothing to show for it. Maybe even God didn't want to help you. Ethan raised his hand as if to strike, but Jackson caught his wrist midair, twisted it, and delivered a clean, sharp punch that echoed through the entire hall. Ethan clutched his face, staring at Jackson in disbelief. You dare. Oh, I dare, Jackson said, brushing dust from his sleeve, his voice cold as ice. Consider this a lesson in dignity. Chasing after your ex-fiancée when you already have a wife, your family's upbringing is remarkable. Standing beside them, watching Jackson's sharp movements and confident posture, I felt something warm ripple through my chest. Until now, I'd only seen him as a bit unruly and carefree. At this moment, he was dazzling. That wild, radiant boldness in his bones, that was something I had always craved but never possessed. While I was still caught off guard by the unexpected warmth he stirred, Ethan suddenly switched to a pitiful act. Grace, are you just going to watch him hit me like that? Yes, I answered without hesitation. My husband may be a bit impulsive, but he's adorable, isn't he? I turned to Jackson. Does your hand hurt? Jackson gave a dramatically pitiful look and held out his palm. Slightly exaggerated, but charming nonetheless. I lowered my head and gently kissed the center of his hand. Next time something requires heavy hands, I said softly, let the security team handle it. Ethan's expression looked as if he had just swallowed a fly. He screamed like he'd lost his mind. Grace, you'll regret this. Eventually, even Nora couldn't endure it anymore. She grit her teeth and pulled on his arm. Ethan, we should go to the hotel. Go to what? Ethan yanked her hand away, furious. Look at how grand their wedding is. And look at you. I only gave you one job, just one, to arrange the wedding car, and you couldn't even do that. Nora's face turned pale, then flushed with embarrassment. That was when I finally noticed the cars behind them. They were all common, basic models, truly pathetic compared to our motorcade. Jackson suddenly let out an understanding, ah. So today is your wedding too? What a coincidence. He waved to our butler. Go to the storage room and bring out 2 bottles of champagne. A little congratulatory gift from us. His words were like rubbing salt into a wide-open wound. Ethan trembled, gripping Nora's wrist to drag her away. Let's go. Let those 2 lunatics enjoy their little show alone. Watching their miserable backs disappear, I finally exhaled in relief. Jackson nudged my cheek lightly. Feel better now? I caught his hand and kissed it. Much better. Right then, the MC approached and informed us it was time to enter the ceremony hall. Jackson held my wrist gently, letting out a soft sigh. Honestly, I'm a little nervous. I blinked. This was the same man who once blocked my car at the company gate with such arrogant confidence, and now his palm was sweaty. Why nervous? I teased. Afraid I'll run away? He raised an eyebrow. Afraid you'll think I'm too aggressive and assume I'm some unfaithful jerk. I couldn't help laughing, right there in front of everyone. Rising on my toes, I kissed him. Why worry about so many rules? You're perfect. Exactly my type. The ceremony went flawlessly. During the ring exchange, I noticed a few figures lurking near the entrance. They were guests from Ethan's side. It seemed they had come just to watch the drama. Jackson also saw them and leaned toward me with a smirk. Looks like their wedding next door is going to be pretty empty. I shrugged. Not my problem. When the reception began, my secretary whispered in my ear, "At Ethan Harper's wedding, there aren't even 10 tables. Mostly relatives from the Harper family. The famous singer and band he spent millions to hire have just left. They're performing at our wedding instead. They said they couldn't miss the grandest wedding of the year." Hearing that, Jackson burst out laughing and pulled me into his arms, his chest shaking with each laugh. Serves him right. Who told him to steal my arranged marriage candidate? I kissed his chin lightly. So, shouldn't you be thanking him now? If he hadn't been such an idiot, how would I have ended up with such a good husband? Jackson suddenly went quiet. His gaze softened, overflowing with emotion. Grace, do you really want to marry me? His question made my heart tremble. I thought carefully before giving the most certain answer I'd ever had. I do. To be honest, at the beginning, I had no real expectations for marriage. I thought marrying anyone would turn out the same. Even when I agreed to Jackson's proposal, I only saw it as the most optimal alliance between our families. But with every meeting, every conversation, I slowly realized he wasn't like everyone else. He was free-spirited, bold, proud, and carried a restless desire to break every outdated rule. I lifted my head and kissed him softly at the corner of his mouth. I want it, truly. After a few days of living together, I discovered Jackson was nothing like the rumors. People in the social circle claimed he was useless, brainless, and only knew how to burn money. Your typical spoiled rich heir who would never accomplish anything. But in reality, the way he saw problems was incredibly sharp. His economic and market analysis was crisp and logical. He was absolutely not someone who only had good looks. At the dinner table, Jackson noticed my gaze. Maybe he realized he'd been talking too much, so he leaned back casually. Jackson leaned back, pretending not to care. You're wondering why someone like me, who clearly isn't as useless as the rumors say, is still bad-mouthed everywhere, right? I stayed quiet for a moment, then nodded. I was a little curious, but I'm guessing those rumors, you spread them yourself, didn't you? I just want to know why. Oh? He raised a brow. Smart, very different from the idiots I've met before. He shrugged casually. You already know the Jiang family's assets are no joke. It's hard to tell who's genuine and who's two-faced. So you pretended to be incompetent just to silently observe who might stab you in the back? Jackson cleared his throat and made a low hum, which was basically an admission. Then what about the rumor that you'd change girlfriends like changing clothes? Before I even finished, Jackson choked on his soy milk and coughed nonstop, waving his hands furiously. That one wasn't me. Most of my information network is in bars and clubs. Once in a while, someone spots me hanging around those places, and the rumors spread. I was too lazy to explain, and it did help reinforce my persona, so I let them talk. I didn't know why, but hearing that made something ache in my chest. Jackson was 2 years younger than me, yet those awful rumors had surrounded him for years. That meant he had been fighting battles alone since long before we met, no one knowing how many insults he endured or how many times he fell before standing where he was now. After we finished eating, I drove Jackson to his company and then left for mine. I never expected that after finishing a meeting, the moment I stepped out of the conference room, I would see Ethan Harper standing at the far end of the hallway. His eyes were swollen red, his chin bruised, his whole appearance miserable, like a completely different person. When he saw me, he staggered toward me. Grace, I stepped aside, frowning. What do you want? I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. His voice shook as tears streamed down his face. Can you spare the Harper family? My dad is hospitalized from the shock. The company's a mess. All our partners are pulling out. I smoothed my skirt and said calmly, "Business is war. Isn't this normal?" "But it's all because of that email you sent," he suddenly shouted, grabbing my sleeve with trembling hands. "Grace, we've known each other for 25 years. How can you be this heartless?" I pried each of his fingers off one by one. "Ethan Harper, did you forget? You were the one who said, if you have the guts, cut off the capital chain. And I told you clearly, from now on, we go our separate ways." His face drained of color. His lips trembled, but nothing came out. Then, with a thud, he collapsed to his knees in front of me. "I'm begging you. I was impulsive before. I'll treat you well from now on. Don't you remember? When we were little, I had a fever and you carried me to the hospital. You said you'd always protect me." I froze for a moment. Thinking I had softened, he crawled forward and clung to my leg. Yes, you remember, don't you? We have so many memories, how can you just throw everything away?" I looked down at his pathetic, crumpled figure and couldn't help letting out a laugh. I slowly crouched down, meeting his eyes. "Ethan Harper, then do you remember, last year on your birthday, I had a 39-degree fever. But I didn't want to disappoint you, so I stayed up all night preparing a surprise. And in the end, because of a single comment, you canceled the date. Only later did I find out you went out with Nora instead." I took a breath. "And that's just one example. Do you need me to list them all?" His face turned sheet white like paper. I stood up, brushing off my skirt as if dusting away something insignificant. "You should understand, I didn't stay because I didn't know. I stayed because I didn't care enough to argue. So don't ever bring up our memories again. You don't deserve them." Right then, the elevator doors opened. Behind me, Ethan screamed with all the pain in his lungs, "Grace, you'll get your karma. You'll regret this." I laughed, stepping into the elevator. "Karma? I'm living beautifully." That night, when I got home, Jackson was lying sprawled comfortably on the sofa, munching on an apple. When he saw me come home, Jackson immediately reached out and pulled me into his arms. "I heard someone caused a scene at your company today." I blinked in surprise. "Your intel is fast." "Of course." He waved his phone proudly. "The whole company is buzzing about how Director Taylor's ex-boyfriend got on his knees begging her to take him back, and still got brutally rejected." I let him hold me as I curled comfortably in his lap on the sofa. "Jealous? Me?" He scoffed, popping a slice of apple into my mouth. "You think I'm that kind of person?" The apple was sweet and slightly tart. I leaned in to kiss the corner of his mouth, where a bit of juice still lingered. "Even if you were jealous, it'd be fine. I still think you're adorable no matter what." After dealing with everything on my side, it was time for the John family to cast their net. Because Jackson married me, quite a few hidden figures had begun to stir in the shadows, hoping to take advantage before he fully took control of the company. In the office, Jackson tossed a stack of documents in front of me, tapping the top audit report with his finger. "Last month, third uncle siphoned $20 million from one of our subsidiaries. He really thinks I'm a puppet." I flipped open the file, clear transaction records, receipts, and even photos of his uncle entering a hotel with his mistress. I closed the folder calmly. "So what do you plan to do?" Jackson stood up. The fitted black suit accentuated his tall, commanding presence. "Tomorrow's board meeting, I want them to cough up every cent they swallowed." The next morning, in the conference room on the top floor of Jan Corporation, third uncle, Mr. Jameson, slammed the table and roared, "Jackson, on what basis do you freeze my authority? I'm your elder." Sitting at the head of the table, Jackson lazily twirled his fountain pen. "Uncle Jameson, March 16, 2019. How much did you lose at the casino in Macau?" The room fell into a stunned silence. "Need me to refresh your memory?" Jackson pressed a button, and bank statement screenshots appeared on the projector. 23 million. That money came from the Coates Family Education Fund. The room erupted into murmurs. Second uncle, Mr. Jensen, hurried to intervene. "Jackson, you can't do this. Family matters shouldn't be aired to outsiders." Jackson shot him a slow, mocking glance. "Second uncle, maybe handle your own problems first, before worrying about others. Last year, you transferred the rights to that Southern City lot to your mistress for pennies. Should I bring that up here too?" I handed another file to Jackson, and he tossed it onto the table effortlessly. "This is the full list of temporary loans you've taken from company funds over the years. You have two options. He lifted a finger. 1. Repay everything with interest within 3 days. Then raised a second finger. 2. The Economic Crime Unit will invite you all out for tea. Third uncle's face went pale. You're trying to kill us. Jackson laughed, a low, icy sound that sent chills through the room. Third uncle, your son spends plenty of money studying abroad, doesn't he? If evidence of your embezzlement got sent to his school, Jameson shot to his feet so quickly the chair nearly toppled. You dare threaten me? Jackson didn't even flinch, just watched him with a faint smile. For years, everyone in that room thought he was just a spoiled, frivolous playboy, easy to manipulate. But as each piece of undeniable evidence was thrown onto the table, no one dared assume anything about him anymore. In the end, third uncle bowed his head. I'll pay it all back tomorrow. Not even 10 minutes later, the room emptied until only Jackson and I remained. He loosened his tie, fatigue faintly visible in his eyes. I walked behind him and gently massaged his temples. He leaned against me, his voice husky. Grace, was I too cruel today? Business is war. I pressed a gentle kiss to his hair. Showing mercy to an enemy is being cruel to yourself. Jackson wrapped an arm around my waist, his voice low and warm. Good thing I have you. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel nearly this steady. 3 days later, every cent that had been stolen was fully returned to the company's accounts. At the next board meeting, Jackson announced the creation of a special oversight committee, with me appointed as the direct lead. His cold gaze swept across the room. From now on, anyone who dares reach their hand out, I'll cut it off myself. That night, at the celebration banquet, Jackson got a little drunk. Like an oversized puppy, he buried his head against my neck and refused to let go. Baby, aren't I amazing? He mumbled. I laughed while pulling a blanket over him. Chairman Zhang, fearless, unstoppable, unmatched. He chuckled too, pressing playful kisses along my lips until he tired himself out. Then he hugged me tightly and sighed. Honestly, I'm exhausted. My parents died early. It's been so long since I've been able to lean on anyone or trust anyone completely like I trust you. Everyone around me watches my every move, just waiting for a slip-up so they can overthrow me and take everything my parents left behind. There were times I was so paranoid I didn't even dare eat a boiled egg the housekeeper gave me. I was afraid it might be poisoned. My only option was to act even weaker, even more useless, so they'd let their guard down. Make them think I wasn't a threat. My heart tightened painfully. I kissed away the faint shimmer at the corner of his eye. You've suffered enough. From now on, you have me. I can't promise I'll protect you from everything, but I'll be the strongest support you could ever have. Whatever you want to do, I'll stand right beside you. Jackson gave a sleepy smile before suddenly pulling me closer, that familiar spark of mischief lighting his eyes. You just said you'd do anything with me, so I want you to give me a child. One as smart as you. Book Mo back, I laughed, meeting his kiss and letting his whispered wish sink deep into my heart. Outside the window, the night sky shimmered with bright stars, but the warmth beside me was what made everything feel unshakably complete, more precious than power or wealth. I thought back to what I once believed, and realized it was time to take back that old statement. Life with someone, how could it ever be the same, no matter who it was?